Hello, everyone, and good Friday to you. Last one of 2018. My. Man. So I hope it's a good one for you. It is cold here, 20 degrees. And yeah. So, hey, everyone, just invoking favor upon your life this day. 2019, I see as a year of restoration for us. And I think after the topic of today, wow, who'd have ever thought restoration? So great favor be with you, be upon you, and may nothing missing, nothing broken be found in your lives, and that which has been stolen returned into you sevenfold. So, folks, how the heck are you? Did y'all just see that? I did that. Yeah. Like, how in the world did that go? So, boy, a lot going on. I want to show you a picture for all of you folks in the New York area. What was this? I mean, they say that it was a transformer. Well, unless the circuit breaker went off in the great sky above, I don't know. How about you folks that lived up there? What was that like? That had to be quite the sight. Now, I'm sure that they're going to have a good explanation for it, as they always do. But I just thought I'd share that with you. Isn't that really pretty? Don't know. Beware of the light. Don't go to the light. Boy, we're going to talk about that one today. Wow. One last little thing here. Check this out. So again, 70,000 years ago, this rogue star comes through. Go figure, folks. I don't know. Seems to me like a lot is happening these days, much more so than I think so many of us, I don't know, can process. And, I want to thank all of you that send me, suggestions, books, videos. A lot of times I can't look at all the old videos. I mean, you see a video that's 7 hours long. That's 7 hours I could be reading, and doing my own research. But nevertheless, there are things that do come along. Every the synchronicity of this group is amazing. We talked about that yesterday. And I just want to say, hey, Franny, how are you doing? And Light Bear, good to see you. And Michelle, good to see you. Indigo Daniel, Jerry, how are you? Heidi, good to see you. Adam, hello. Gushara, good to see you. Bill, hello. All the rest of you. Jesse, it's Jesse's girl. Anyway, so yeah, I gotta love those 7 hour specials. Yeah, I mean, when that great blizzard hits here, Franny, in the Front Range, I guess that'll be the time to do that, won't it? Matt D, hey, how are you doing? Good to see you. Julie Ann, hello from down under. So, thanks to all the moderators. All you guys are the best. Brian, how are you? Angel Fish, well, legend, good to see you. The transcript from the downed alien at Roswell. Yeah, it's an interesting read. When you're in the kitchen, mixing up the batter, the recipe, you begin to find out that as you're putting this together, that there's an odd way of how these things are all coming together. So the domain seems that planet Earth is not of our ownership. In fact, as we get into this today, we're going to find out many of us, I don't know. I got to tell you, I started reading this book last night. I'm about a third of the way through. And, well, it's disturbing. I look at life these days, folks, that so much of this cycle that we are in, it's the only site, I don't know what else to say. It's the most adequate word. And as I look at 2018, and I look where I was at January 1st to where I am today, here the 28th of December, I'm more aware of me. You can call it I. Some try to dismiss it, called ego. I think we're going to find so much of what we have been taught is wrong. Out and outright distortions, lies. There's obviously a control matrix we're all very much aware of. We all sense it. Us empaths, we seem to be, we're either some of the worst SOBs out there in the galactic arena, or we're the most persecuted in the spiritual kingdom. Empaths, intuitives, magicians, musicians, artists, painters, thinkers, philosophers, and even the rebels who say, I'm not going to subject or submit myself to that. It appears that when you mix us in with the psychopaths, the sociopaths, the narcissists, the pedophiles, the perverts that get into psychopathic tendencies of murder, lying, torture, these elements that we're immersed into, and we sit back and we want to know, why am I here? What the hell's the purpose of me being immersed in all this? And sadly, as so many of us search in vain, in so many corners and so many cracks and crevices, trying to search to find out what is the meaning of my life? Why is this reality so upside down, so insane? We call it life, but it's death. Life, if life is what it's being called to be born into this, is then so temporal, infinitesimal, it is so de minimis in the chronology of time, it's not even worth mentioning. I don't like that, because that's what our lives are. The sad reality may in fact be, ladies and gentlemen, you and I have no purpose. None. It's all made up. You think you got something special. You think that you have some special talent. You think that you have some impact on humanity, when in fact it may be very well be that you don't know anything. You don't remember anything. You can't recall anything. And even the stories of those that say that we can look into past lives regression, even that appears to be nothing more than an illusion. I don't like that. I don't like the aspect that, number one, if someone has jacked with me, that pisses me off. I have said this about the God of the Bible. I'm going to kick that son of a bitch's ass. I ever have the opportunity to get near it? Yeah. Because it appears to be, folks, we're in a prison planet. No matter how much we debate, masturbate, congregate, subjugate, it's all for nothing. It's an endless cycle that we're going to go after we die, attracted to the light and the promise of heaven and living with the angels. And as you walk through it, you're zapped again, merely to relive another useless, nothingness life, feeding a system we cannot know about, don't understand about, and we feed and prey upon one another. And we ask ourselves, why is life a survival? You don't eat, you don't live. You don't drink water, you don't live. You know, our bodies are so susceptible to the environment. And as you continue to look at this construct, it looks more and more like a prison. And as we were reading yesterday about Adam and Eve, even chapter 3, as that book now appears, from the Naga, which means serpent, always the serpent. What? Our distortion of time is so limited. We can't perceive of civilizations 100 trillion billion years of age. We can't imagine species that are literally hundreds of trillions years of age, that travel the universe not in their physical form. They don't need to. They can be at any place, at any time, because time is irrelevant. We'll discuss that a little bit more. And be anywhere they want to be. Yeah. Cash 2, you're right. Never walk towards the light. Apparently, many of us have tried that in the past, and we have suffered for it. The reality is beginning to dawn upon me. This may not be my first rodeo in this. May not be yours either. Apparently, it's not. Some of us apparently are branded because we cannot be broken. And the only way they break us is they rob us of our memories, our identities. So Earth, the domain, according to the book, and by the way, I left a link down in the description section for a PDF to it. You can go and download this book, won't cost anything. And I'll say it right now, folks, you really should, in fact, be reading this book. I can't think of any reason why you would not want to read this book. It certainly, you can say, well, it's a fanciful take on reality, a story, a make-believe story. Who knows? I always take it like this. I read a lot. In fact, I can say I read more now than I have ever in my life. It's insatiable. Can't stop. I had mentioned in many previous shows, folks, why we can't have the message in the bottle. Whether it's cataclysmic geology, whether it's through religious ideology, or whether it is just as simple as that you and I are nothing more than prisoners, caught in a perpetual spirit trap, feeding this thing. Apparently there was a battle. Let me get to the document. Again, it's the link is there for you. It's an alien interview. Now, I never met Matilda. Don't even know if Matilda is a real person. What I do like about what Lawrence did here, Lawrence really went to extraordinary lengths, in my opinion, to challenge the authenticity of what he was sent from this person. And he just quite flat lays it out there. He says, I got no way of proving this is real or not. Could be all made up. Could be actually the Holy Grail for us. But nevertheless, what we have here is a story about a woman who was a nurse in the U.S. Army Corps and happened to be stationed, assigned to the 509th Bomber Wing down in New Mexico. And we all know the story. Books, stories, movies, everything has been done on Roswell. And if you go with the story, well, she was there and began to communicate with this ET. And it's not an ET. You know, again, we're learning actually Ariel was feminine in nature, but asexual in the body. And the body was not their bodies are not bio bodies. They're some sort of living doll material. Anyway, so just in my early reading so far, this is what I have come up with. They fought a war here just recently, less than 10,000 years ago. And this has so much to do with Yellow Rose. You know, go over and watch her YouTube, her videos, particularly her early ones. This has so much symmetry. They took out the old guard, the old empire. They just have been observing. They have had a base here. It was attacked. They're trillions of years old, almost infinity. They don't believe in any gods or God. It's ridiculous. Ariel goes into great detail to tell you why it is absurd for you to be believing in a monotheistic, however you want to say it, monotheism approach. Folks, there is no God, at least not in the construct that you and I have been taught. That's part of the prison. They have apparently a condition of a state of consciousness that Matilda said was joy. She said it permeates everything about them. They only communicate telepathically. Their bodies are not their actual bodies. They understand that in space travel, through the great distances, that you can never use a biological form, and they're no longer in their biological form. They are actually what you would call spirit beings. But they're from an unknown galaxy. They see themselves and call themselves, are you ready for this? I am creator, mother, source. Humans are just flat out savages. In fact, we stink. That's my terminology, but Ariel says as much. We stink. We're savages, and we apparently smell like savages. Let's see. We seem to be degressing, not advancing. Ariel said that they believe It's more important to have great spirit and imagination than great skills or power. They first made contact with our species in the year 5965 BCE. They lost a battalion, 3,000 of their officers. It was an attack of the old empire. This is actually depicted in the Vedic. The sad thing is that we don't realize we are immortal spirit beings. We have no beginning. We have no end. Ariel put it this way. We live in a timeless state of is. The only reason for our existence is that we decided to be. Thus, they refer to immortal spirits as is-b, is-be. So that kind of gives you, for the first 70 pages, the domain has a major base in the asteroid belt. Apparently, they have one as well on the other side of the moon. The reason why they avoid Earth is very odd in the solar system. We have a very heavy density here. And for most living sentient beings, Earth is not the place to be. There's a heaviness to Earth. As to time, time is simply an arbitrary measurement of the motion of objects through space. In its truest meaning, time does not actually exist. Apparently, in their natural state, time is no longer, it doesn't mean anything. It has schedule. They're very organized. They have a very structured system. But Ariel says it's their position, and they're much more advanced than we are. A spirit is not born and cannot die, but exists in a personal, postulated perception of is and will be until they're captured. Folks, in fact, it's amazing how you start having the memory start getting back, particularly when you first entered in to these bodies. Let's see. Every spirit is not the same. In fact, there's no two spirits that are the same. Throughout the eternal cosmos, is-be are here in this physical plane because our home, my home, your home, universe was overwhelmed by the physical plane of existence. I can dig that. Kind of answers that question I've had for decades. Well, if the physical universe is expanding, what is it expanding into? It was mine, yours, universe. There can be a forced removal of a person already inhabiting a body. What the domain found with this wicked force that was here, the old empire, was that they construct a force field that surrounds their dominion. This force field can be galaxies. And it captures ISBEs. Earth is a prison planet. And we're about to find out, folks, why so many of us are here. I think we may begin to answer some things. So I'm going to skip to a particular point that I had already mapped out because I want to read this. It's you just got to read it. It's so this is the I don't know if this is the fourth, fifth. I don't know what interview. She says here it's the first session. Okay. So a lot of things, you have to read the book and find out how Ariel was able to communicate. Ariel had to learn English because they only they only speak telepathically and they're way up there. Anyway, it says, before you can, this is Ariel in the transcript of the recordings of all these interviews. Before you can understand the subject of history, you first must understand the subject of time. Time is simply an arbitrary measurement of motions of objects through space. Space is not linear. Space is determined by the point of view of an ISBE when viewing an object. The distance between an ISBE and the object being viewed is called space. You see, folks, we've already talked about this. I see the universe totally different than you do. You see it differently than the next person. And this is why. Objects or energy masses in space do not necessarily move in a linear fashion. In this universe, objects tend to move randomly or in a curving or cyclical pattern, or as determined by agreed upon rules. History is not only a linear record of events, as many authors of Earth's history books imply, because it is not a string that can be stretched out and marked like a measuring tool. History is a subjective observation of the movement of objects through space, recorded from the point of view of a survivor, rather than of those who succumb. Events occur interactively and concurrently, just as the biological body has a heart that pumps blood, while the lungs provide oxygen to the cells, which produce, using energy from the sun and chemicals from plants, at the same time as the liver strains toxic waste from the blood and eliminates them through the bladder and the bowels. All of these interactions are concurrent and simultaneous. Although time runs consecutively, events do not happen in an independent, linear stream. In order to view and understand the history or reality of the past, one must view all events as part of an interactive whole. Time can also be sensed as a vibration, which is uniform throughout the entire physical universe. Does not the seven principles say exactly the same thing? I wonder where those seven principles did come from. Ariel explained that ISBEs have been around since before the beginning of the universe. The reason they are called immortal is because a spirit is not born and cannot die, but exists in a personally postulated perception of is, will be. She was careful to explain that every spirit is not the same. Each is completely unique in identity, power, awareness, and ability. The difference between an ISBE like Ariel and most of the ISBs inhabiting bodies on Earth is that Ariel can enter and depart from her doll at will. She can perceive at selective depths through matter. Ariel and other officers of the domain can communicate telepathically. Since an ISBE is not a physical universe entity, it has no location in space or time. An ISB is literally immaterial. They can span great distances of space instantly. There's so much that anyway. They can experience sensations more intensely than a biological body without the use of physical sensory mechanisms. An ISBE can exclude pain from their perception. Ariel can also remember her identity, so to speak, all the way back into the dim mist of time for trillions of years. She says that the existing collection of suns in this immediate vicinity of the universe have been burning for the last 200 trillion years. The age of the physical universe is nearly infinitely old, but probably at least 4 quadrillion years since its earliest beginning. That's a stretch of time. Time is a difficult factor to measure as it depends on the subjective memory of the ISBEs, and there has been no uniform record of events throughout the physical universe since it began. There are no records. As on Earth, there are many different time measurement systems defined by various cultures, which use cycles of motion and points of origin to establish age and duration. The physical universe itself is formed from the convergence and amalgamation of many other individual universes, each one of which were created by an ISBE or groups of ISBEs. The collision of these illusionary universes commingled and coalesced and were solidified to form a mutual created universe, because it is agreed that energy and forms can be created but not destroyed. This creative process has continued to form an ever-expanding universe of nearly infinite physical proportions. Before the formation of the physical universe, there was a vast period during which universes were not solid, but wholly illusionary. You might say that the universe was a universe of magical illusions, which were made to appear and then vanish at the will of the magician. In every case, the magician was one or more ISBEs. Many ISBEs on Earth can still recall vague images from that period. Tales of magic, sorcery, enchantment, fairy tales, and mythology speaks of such things, although in very crude terms. Each ISBE entered into the physical universe when they lost their own home universe. I knew I was an orphan. I knew I was on a sojourn. That is, when an ISBE's home universe was overwhelmed by the physical universe, or when the ISB joined with other ISBEs to create or conquer the physical universe. On Earth, the ability to determine when an ISBE entered the physical universe is difficult for 2 reasons. One, the memory of the ISBEs on Earth have been erased. And 2, ISBE's arrivals or invasion into the physical universe took place at different times. Some 60 trillion years ago, and others only 3 trillion. Every once in a short while, a few million years, an area or planet will be taken over by another group of ISBEs entering into the area. Sometimes they will capture other ISBEs as slaves. They will be forced to inhabit bodies to perform menial and manual work, especially mining mineral ores on heavy gravity planets such as Earth. Folks, does this not tie in so much of the crap? Ariel says that she has been a member of the Domain Expedition Aerial Force for more than 625 million years, while she became a pilot for a biological survey mission, which included occasional visits to Earth. She can remember her entire career there and for a very long time before that. She told me that Earth scientists do not have an accurate measuring system to gauge the age of matter. They assume that because certain types of materials seem to deteriorate rather quickly, such an organic or carbon-based matter, that there is a deterioration of matter. It is not accurate to measure the age of stone based on the measurement of the age of wood or bone. This is a fundamental error. Factually, matter does not deteriorate. It cannot be destroyed. Matter may be altered in form, but it is never truly destroyed. The domain has conducted a periodic survey of the galaxies in this sector of the universe since it developed space travel technologies about 80 trillion years ago. A review of changes in the complexion of Earth revealed that mountain ranges rise and fall, continents change location, the poles of the planet shift, ice caps come and go, oceans appear and disappear, rivers, valleys, and canyons change. In all cases, the matter is the same. It is always the same sand. Every form of substance is made of the same basic material, which never deteriorates. Matilda says, in her side notes, I cannot even begin to imagine how advanced a civilization may become technically and mentally after trillions of years. Just think of how advanced our own country has become compared to only 150 years ago. Now, remember, Matilda was a middle-aged woman back in the late 40s. She was a strong Roman Catholic and, different values back then. Only a few generations ago, transportation was on foot, horseback, or boat. Reading was done by candlelight. Heating and cooking was done over a fireplace, and there wasn't any indoor plumbing. We continue. Ariel described the abilities of an ISBE officer of the domain to me, and she demonstrated one to me when she contacted telepathically a communications officer of the domain who was stationed in the asteroid belt. The asteroid belt is composed of thousands of broken up pieces of a planet that once existed between Mars and Jupiter. It serves as a good low gravity jumping off point for incoming spacecrafts traveling towards the center of our galaxy. She requested that this officer consult information stored in the files of the domain concerning the history of Earth. She asked the communications officers to feed this information to her. The communications officer immediately complied with their request. Based on the information stored in the files of the domain, Ariel was able to give me a brief overview of the history lesson. This is what Ariel told me that the domain had observed about the history of the Earth. She told me that the main expeditionary force first entered into the Milky Way galaxy very recently, only about 10,000 years ago. Their first action was to conquer the home planets of the old empire. This is not the official name, but a nickname given to the conquered civilizations by the domain forces that served as the seat of central government for this galaxy and other adjoining regions of space. These planets are located in the star systems in the tail of the Big Dipper constellation. She did not mention which star exactly. About 1,500 years later, the domain began installation bases for their own forces along the path of invasion, which leads towards the center of this galaxy and beyond. Invasion, folks. About 8,200 years ago, the domain forces set up a base on Earth in the Himalaya Mountains near the borders of modern Pakistan and Afghanistan. This was a base for the battalion of the Domain Expeditionary Force, which included about 3,000 members. They set up a base under or inside the top of a mountain. The mountain top was drilled into and made hollow to create an area large enough to house the ships and personnel of that force. An electronic illusion of the mountaintop was then created to hide the base by projecting a false image from the inside the mountain against a force screen. The ships could then enter and exit through the force screen, yet remain unseen by Homo sapiens. Shortly after they settled there, the base was surprised by an attack from a remnant of the military forces of the old empire. Unbeknownst to the domain, the hidden underground base on Mars operated by the old empire had existed for a very long time. The domain base was wiped out by a military attack from the Mars base, and the ISBEs of the Domain Expeditionary Force were captured. You can imagine that the domain was very upset about losing such a large force of officers and crew. So they sent other crews to Earth to look for them. Those crews were also attacked. The captured ISBEs from the domain forces were handled in the same fashion as all other ISBEs who have been sent to Earth. They were each given amnesia. They had their memories replaced with false pictures and hypnotic commands and sent to Earth to inhabit biological bodies. They are still a part of the human population today. After a very persistent and extensive investigation into the loss of their crews, the domain discovered the old empire has been operating a very extensive and very carefully hidden base of operations in this part of the galaxy for millions of years. No one knows exactly how long. Evidently, the spacecraft of the old empire forces and the domain engaged each other in open combat in the space in our solar system. I think we've got some pictures of that too. I think some of those attacks, I don't know, maybe there's a new group. According to Ariel, there was a running battle between the old empire forces and the domain until 1235 AD, when the domain forces finally destroyed the last of the spacecraft of the old empire forces in this area. The domain expeditionary force lost many of its own ships in this area during that time also. About 1,000 years later, the old empire base was discovered by accident in the spring of 1914 AD. The discovery was made when the body of the Archduke of Austria was taken over by an officer of the Domain Expeditionary Force. This officer, who was stationed in the asteroid belt, was sent to Earth on a routine mission to gather reconnaissance. The purpose of this takeover was to use the body as a disguise through which the infiltrated human society in order to gather information about current events on Earth. The officer, as an ISBE, having greater power than the being inhabiting the body of the Archduke, simply pushed the being out and took over control of the body. However, this officer did not realize how much the Habsburgs were hated by feuding factions in the country. So he was caught off guard when the body of the Archduke was assassinated by a Bosnian student. The officer, or the ISB, was suddenly knocked out of the body when it was shot by the assassin. Disorientated, the ISBE inadvertently penetrated one of the amnesia force screens and was captured. You know, may I stop here? You know, you see these pictures from the dark ages of the firmament. You remember when the guy sticking his head out through it? I wonder if we have totally screwed up all of this. Remember, all those drawings were from the Dark Ages, as an area will tell you. That was an attack on us. Anyway. Eventually, the domain discovered that a wide area of space is monitored by an electronic force field, which controls all of the ISBEs in this end of the galaxy, including Earth. The electronic force screen is designed to detect ISBs and prevent them from leaving the area. Welcome to the Hotel California. You can check out anytime you want. You can just never leave. If any ISB attempts to penetrate the force screen, it captures them in a kind of electronic net. The result is that the captured ISBE is subjugated to a very severe brainwashing treatment, which erases the memory of the ISBE. This process uses a tremendous electrical shock, just like Earth psychiatrists use electrical shock therapy to erase the memory and personality of a patient and to make them more cooperative. On Earth, this therapy uses only a few hundred volts electricity, However, the electrical voltage used by the old empire operation against ISBEs is on the order of magnitude of billions of volts. This tremendous shock completely wipes out all the memory of the ISBE. The memory erasure is not just for one life or one body. It wipes out all of the accumulated experience of nearly infinite past, as well as the identity of the ISBE. We're a bunch of amnesiacs. The shock is intended to make it impossible for the ISBE to remember who they are, where they came from, their knowledge or skills, their memory of the past, and ability to function as a spiritual entity. They are overwhelmed into becoming a mindless, robotic non-entity. After the shock, a series of post-hypnotic suggestions are used to install false memories and a false time orientation in each ISBE. This includes the command to return to the base after the body dies, so that the same kind of shock and hypnosis can be done again. Hypnosis, and again forever. The hypnotic command also tells the patient to forget to remember. What the domain learned from the experience of this officer is that the old empire has been using Earth as a prison planet for a very long time. Exactly how long is unknown, perhaps millions of years. So when the body of the ISBE dies, they depart from the body. They are detected by the force screen. They are captured and ordered by hypnotic command to return to the light. The idea of heaven and the afterlife are part of the hypnotic suggestion, a part of the treachery that makes the whole mechanism work. After the ISBE has been shocked and hypnotized to erase the memory of the life just lived, the ISBE is immediately commanded hypnotically to report back to Earth as though they were on a secret mission to inhabit a new body. Each ISBE is told that they have a special purpose for being on Earth. But of course, there is no purpose for being in a prison, at least not for the prisoner. Any undesirable ISBE who are sentenced to Earth were classified as untouchable by the old empire. This includes anyone that the old empire judged to be criminals who are too vicious to be reformed or subdued, as well as other criminals such as sexual perverts or beings unwilling to do any productive work. An untouchable, it's time for a sip of tea. An untouchable classification of an ISBEs also include a wide variety of political prisoners. This includes ISBEs who are considered to be non-compliant free thinkers or revolutionaries who make trouble for the governments of various planets of the old empire. Of course, anyone with a previous military record against the old empire is also shipped off to Earth. I was told never mind. A list of untouchables include, are you ready for this? Artists, painters, singers, musicians, writers, actors, performers of every kind. For this reason, Earth has more artists per capita than any other planet in the old empire. Wow. Who'd have known? See, I think there was a bunch of them dumped in here right about 1935, and they brought us rock and roll. Untouchables also include intellectuals, inventors, and geniuses in almost every field. Since everything the old empire considers valuable has long since been invented or created over the last few trillion years, they have no further use of such beings. This includes skilled managers also, which are not needed in a society of obedient, robotic citizens. Anyone who is not willing or able to submit to mindless economic, political, and religious servitude as a tax-paying worker in the class system of the old empire are untouchable and sentenced to receive memory wipeout and permanent imprisonment on earth. That sucks. The net result is that an ISBE is unable to escape because they can't remember who they are, where they came from, where they are. They have been hypnotized to think they are someone, something, sometime, and somewhere other than where they really are. The domain officer who was assassinated while in the body of the Archduke of Austria was likewise captured by the old empire forces. Because this particular officer was a high-powered ISBE compared to the most, he was taken away to a secret old empire base under the surface of the planet Mars. They put him into a special electronic prison cell and held him there. Fortunately, this domain officer was able to escape from the underground base after 27 years in captivity. When he escaped from the old empire base, he returned immediately to his own base in the asteroid belt. His commanding officer ordered that the battle cruiser be dispatched to the coordinates of the base provided by this officer and to destroy that base completely. This old empire base was located a few hundred miles north of the equator on Mars in the Cydonia region. Folks, do you think that that's maybe why we can detect two distinct nuclear signatures? Do you think that's maybe why we've seen the blast zones? Just saying. Although the military base of the old empire was destroyed, unfortunately, much of the vast machinery of the ISB-4 screens and electroshock amnesia hypnosis machinery continues to function in other undiscovered locations right up to the present moment. The main base or control center for this mind control prison operation has never been found, so the influence of this base or bases are still in effect. The domain has observed that since the old empire space forces were destroyed, there is no one left to actively prevent other planetary systems from bringing their own untouchables, ISBs, to Earth from all over this galaxy and from other galaxies nearby. Therefore, Earth has become a universal dumping ground for this entire region of space. This, in part, explains the very unusual mix of races, cultures, languages, moral codes, religious, and political influences among the ISB's population on Earth. The number and variety of heterogeneous societies on Earth are extremely unusual on a normal planet. Most Sun Type 12 Class 7 planets are inhabited by only one humanoid type body or race, if any. In addition, most of the ancient civilizations on Earth and many of the events of Earth have been heavily influenced by the hidden hypnotic operation of the old empire base. So far, no one has figured out exactly where or how this operation is run, or by whom, because it is so heavily protected by screens and traps. Furthermore, there has been no operation undertaken to seek out, discover, and destroy the vast and ancient network of electronic machinery that creates the ISB-4 screens at this end of the galaxy. Until this has been done, we are not able to prevent or interrupt the electric shock operation, hypnosis, and remote thought control of the old empire prison planet. Of course, all the crew members of the Domain Expeditionary Force now remain unaware of this phenomenon, and at all times while operating in this solar system space so as to prevent detection and the capture by the old empire traps. Wow. Well, let's continue. We got a little bit of time here. I hope you can see that this is some heavy stuff. All right, let's continue. The Domain Expeditionary Force has observed a resurgence in science and culture of the Western world since 1150 AD, when the remaining remnants of space fleet of the old empire in this solar system were destroyed. The influence of the remote control hypnotist, he's been reading it a long time. It happens like that. Hypnosis operation diminished slightly after that time, but still remains largely in force. Apparently, a small amount of damage was done to the old empire remote mind control operation, which resulted in a small decrease in the power of this mechanism. As a result, some memory of the technologies that the ISBs already knew before they came to Earth started to be remembered. Thereafter, the oppression of knowledge that is called the Dark Ages in Europe began to diminish after that time. Since the knowledge of the basic laws of physics and electricity has revolutionized Earth's culture virtually overnight, the ability to remember technology by many of the geniuses in the ISB population of Earth was partially restored when not so actively suppressed as it was before 1150 AD. Sir Isaac Newton is one of the best examples of this. Only in a few decades, he single-handedly reinvented several major and fundamental scientific and mathematical disciplines. The men who remembered these sciences already knew them before they were sent to Earth. Ordinarily, no one could ever observe or discover as much about science and mathematics in a single lifetime, or even in a few hundred lifetimes. These subjects have taken civilizations billions and billions of years to create. ISBs on Earth have only just begun to remember small fragments of all the technologies that existed throughout the universe. Theoretically, if the amnesia mechanisms being used against Earth could be broken entirely, ISBs would regain all of their memory. Unfortunately, similar advances have not been seen in the humanities, as the ISBs of Earth continue to behave very badly towards each other. This behavior, however, is heavily influenced by the hypnotic commands given to each of the ISBs between lifetimes. And the very unusual combination of inmates on Earth, criminals, perverts, artists, revolutionaries, and geniuses, is the cause of a very resistive and tumultuous environment. The purpose of the prison planet is to keep ISBs on Earth forever. Promoting ignorance, superstition, and war between ISBs helps to keep the prison population crippled and trapped behind the wall of the electronic force screens. ISBs have been dumped on Earth from all over the galaxy, adjoining galaxies, and from planetary systems from all over the old empire, like Sirius, Aberon, the Pleiades, Orion, Draconis, and the countless others. There are ISBs on Earth from unnamed races, civilizations, cultural backgrounds, and planetary environments. Each of the various ISB populations have their own languages, belief systems, moral values, religious beliefs, training, and unknown and untold histories. These ISBs are mixed together with earlier inhabitants of Earth who came from another star system more than 400,000 years ago to establish the civilizations of Atlanta and Lemuria. These civilizations vanished beneath the tidal waves caused by a planetary polar shift many thousands of years before the current prison population started to arrive. Apparently, the ISBs from these star systems were the source of the original races of Earth, beginning in Australia. On the other hand, the civilizations set up on Earth by the old empire prison system were very different from the civilizations of the old empire itself, which is an electronic space opera, atomic-powered conglomeration of earlier civilizations that were conquered with nuclear weapons and colonized by ISBs from another galaxy. The bureaucracy that controlled the former old empire was from an ancient space opera society run by a totalitarian confederation of planetary governments, regulated by a brutal social, economic, and political hierarchy with a royal monarch as its figurehead. This type of government emerges with regularity on planets where the citizens abandon personal responsibility for autonomous self-regulations. They frequently lose their freedom to demented ISBs who suffer from an overwhelming paranoia that every other ISB is their enemy who must be controlled and destroyed. Their closest friends and allies whom they espouse to love and cherish are literally loved to death by them. Because such ISBs exist, the domain has learned that freedom must be won and maintained through eternal vigilance and the ability to use defensive forces to maintain it. As a result, the domain has already conquered the governing planet of the old empire. The civilization of the domain, although considerably younger and smaller in size, is already more powerful, better organized, and united by the egalitarian spirit de corps, never known in the history of the old empire. The recently despoiled German totalitarian state on Earth was similar to the old empire, but not nearly as brutal and about 10,000 times less powerful. Many of the ISBs on Earth are here because they are violently opposed to totalitarian governments, or because they were so psychotically vicious that they cannot be controlled by old empire governments. Consequently, the population of Earth is disproportionately comprised of a very high percentage of such beings. The conflicting cultural and ethical moral codes of the ISBs on Earth is unusual in the extreme. The domain conquest of the central old empire planets was fought with electronic cannon. The citizens of the planets forming the core of the government for the old empire are a filthy, degraded slave society of mindless, tax-paying workers who practice cannibalism, violent automotive racetracks, and bloody Roman circus-type entertainments are their only amusements. Wow. Well, folks, where am I at on this? So we still have a number of pages. Why don't we just save this for Monday? Yeah. Okay, that's what we'll do. So is this some heavy stuff? I mean, seriously, folks, what the hell? I mean, that's why when you read this, I have to temper the rage. Haven't we all sensed this? Be honest. Every one of you watching right now have sensed this at some point of your existence. This is where the construct that you need to be saved was introduced. You see how it all ties together? And folks, wait till we continue on. We're just going to read the whole damn book. Why don't we just go ahead and do that? You've got the PDFs. Get out there, follow the link, download it. Now, there are many that cannot read that listen to us. They're part of our community. And that's why I read this. And so you have to be sensitive to their needs as well. And they have every bit of right to learn this as you and I do. Woo! All right. I got to go. Tonight, got Chelsea Rose coming on. She's one of us. Looking forward to hearing her story. And folks, let's make 2019. You know, if they got us, I don't know if it's possible. Ariel died. That vessel, they don't die in the sense. She just went back to her kind. I know this opens up so many questions for me. I review my life and the battle that all must face within, the conflicting emotions, thoughts, ideas, the oppressive forces that always seem to come against us, loved ones who seem to oppress us when they should be, their presence should enlighten us, joy Does it now make sense why joy is virtually non-existent on this planet? And the few rare moments it does shine, it seems to be immediately quashed. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on a discovery here. I don't know. Obviously, by this, if you take it with a grain of salt. But just conjecturing here, let's take it in the premise that it is true. It certainly would make sense. So much here, folks. All right. Yeah, I'd love to get David and Corey on the show. CJ, love to get them on here. I think we would have a lively discussion. I think it'd be a good one. All of this is so, in David Ickey's book. I don't know. Something's going on, folks. I don't know. Maybe Ariel went back and said, these people, there are ISBEs here that are worth rescuing. Maybe the plans have changed since this was written. Maybe there is a force. The armada that I've been told is up there. A huge armada. Maybe, folks, rescue, help is on the way. All right, I just invoke favor upon every one of you listening. May favor grace you as that is a warm blanket. May it be your constant companion, and may knowledge ever grace you. And may the new year be an exciting one for all of us, folks. Hey, I appreciate it. Don't bring Will. Sorry. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. That's very sweet. All of you are just the best. Thank you. Y'all are just, you grace Lynn and I. Our lives are so much better. And even when we face the challenges, in which we all do, the energy that you people provide here, yeah. So I hope I'm sewing it back into your life. Have yourself a great day. Join us if you can tonight, and enjoy the last weekend of 2018. Prison Planet. Who'd have known? All right, folks. Namaste to you. Be good. We will talk real soon. All right. Bye-bye. I'm not going to try to cut myself off. So I'm going to do the pose. And we'll talk later.